All right, hi everyone, and welcome to this discussion that we've titled Optimization and Benefits of Insurance. So, economically, uncertainties rise. A young, insurable population, growing middle class, and there's this rising awareness about the need for retirement and a healthy retirement planning is really buoying the market. The insurance industry should touch 280 billion in revenues this year, should expand by 14 to 50% annually over the next 3 to 5 years. Therefore, it's really in insurance where there's a pressing need because India's middle classes almost never have health or life insurance, and that is where Policy Bazaar really fills in the blanks. We are joined by Neeraj Gupta, who is the CEO of PolicyBazaar.ae, which is the overseas venture of India's biggest insurance aggregator, PolicyBazaar.com. Now, Neeraj envisions fostering a behavioral change in the UAE market relating to how finances and social security is perceived in that region by the masses and promoting digital channels as the preferred medium for the consumers when they're managing their personal finance. Furthermore, he seeks to rejuvenate the fintech ecosystem in that state by offering a robust alternative to traditional methodologies through PolicyBazaar.ae, of course. Prior to his elevation as the CEO of PolicyBazaar.ae, he was heading the motor insurance vertical for the flagship venture in India. Let's say hello to Neeraj. Hi, Neeraj. Thank you so much for joining us for this
Hi,
conversation.
Linia. Thanks for having me here. It's a pleasure to be here today.
And it's a pleasure to have you here. So let's begin by, if you could just take us briefly through your journey and how you got started with Policy Bazaar.
Sure. I believe in 2011, I had completed my master's in 2010 from Bombay.
Okay.
And I was working with Wipro in Bangalore. And I was doing the usual IT business consulting, right? And I was looking to do something different. And that is how I got in touch with Policy Bazaar, Yashish, our group CEO. We had a conversation, probably that conversation lasted 30 minutes, right? And at the end of it, it was like, you want to move to Delhi? You want to work here? I was like, yes, I am a Delhiite. I want to move there. So he was like, let's just come on board. And within 15 days, I packed my bags and I was in Policy Bazaar. So when I started with Policy Bazaar, we were a very small organization. We were just starting on the digital bandwagon, right? At that point of time, you couldn't come online and buy a policy instantly, like the way you do an air ticket, right? So my first role in Policy was to build that piece. So that what we called as online integrations, where a consumer could come online, make a payment, get a policy instantly. So that is what I started. I started with motor insurance, health insurance, travel, two-wheeler. So over the next 1-2 years, till about 2012-13, I did that. And then eventually, as Policy Bazaar, we moved to a structure which was more of business units. And the reason for doing that was what we realized very soon was every product requires their own thinking and direction.
Yes.
Both product perspective, business development perspective, from an operations perspective. So we curated a business unit structure. So we had motor separate, health separate, life separate. Because we wanted to put a focus on each line very differently. And that is where I took up the role of motor insurance and two-wheeler insurance. I started heading that, building those integrations, platforms. And that is what I continued for till about 5 years. And 2017 late, we decided, okay, let's look outside. And that is when I moved to this role.
Fantastic. So, let's talk about 2020.
Yeah.
I read that the value of health and term insurance policies that PolicyBazaar.com sold online saw a significant spike during the pandemic.
Yes.
So can you tell us how has COVID-19 made a consumer more aware to buy insurance? And also if you could give us the angle of how Policy Bazaar has benefited from this.
Sure. So a couple of things. What has pandemic done is, at least this pandemic has brought about a consumers' discussion on insurance, right? Because what this pandemic has done is, because today we are living in a age of social media and everything, so all the newses are coming much more upfront and in real time, right? So a lot of consumers are talking about it. They're much more aware that, okay, this can happen to them. So right now, what used to happen typically when we used to talk about health insurance, life insurance, a consumer feels that this is not going to happen to me. So why do I need insurance? Now, but with pandemic, what has happened is consumers start thinking, oh, this can happen to me as well. So am I sufficiently insured for it? And that is what the conversation has started. So a lot of consumers started conversing about insurance. And as a result, we saw a lot of website traffic increase on our website. We expected a lot of consumers to start buying insurance, and we were well prepared. So to be very honest, at our end, we were planning that there might be certain hiccups when we moved from work from home and everything, but we have zero downtime till now, and the entire workforce moved work from home on 22nd of March, and that is where the things are as of now. But what has happened on the pandemic? See, a lot of consumers have started discussing insurance, right? Now, a lot of consumers have also realized the my insurance, which is covered by the company, might not be sufficient. Or what happens when I lose a job? And unfortunate incidents have happened in this time when a lot of people have lost jobs, right? And when you lose a job, the company insurance at times has not been valid. So what do you do at that point in time? So a lot of consumers have started and looking at insurance very differently. The conversations have started. And at Policy Bazaar level, what we were able to leverage was we've been working on the digital bandwagon, right? So we had digitalized a lot of processes. What we were able to quickly also move to digital was the underwriting processes. So a lot of consumers were not okay to go to a medical checkup because the centers were closed or you were not allowed to go. So we moved to a lot of tele underwriting. So when a consumer comes in, there will be a specialized doctor or an underwriter who will speak to a consumer if the case arises it to be, and basis that a decision would be done. So we've done all those things. So now, for example, a consumer can literally come on platform and not interact physically with anybody and get a policy, right? So that is what we've been able to do. As you rightly said, on the health side, a lot of consumers have started buying insurance during the pandemic season. And now with what has happened is specific COVID plans have come about. And the consumers have started looking at those plans to just cover COVID. And that is where we keep on telling consumers, don't look this as only covering during a pandemic. You have to cover yourself sufficiently. See, a lot of consumers miss the point, okay, your jobs are safe, you are well insured through your company, right? Right. But the point is, you're going to retire one day. For example, if you retire at 60, what happens then? That insurance is not going to cover you at that point of time. So I believe the conversation has started. We are trying to educate a lot more consumers. Hopefully, we should see a systematic shift in consumers.
All right. So, Neeraj, talking about digital, Policy Bazaar is one of the largest curator insurance. Tell us what makes it stand out so distinctly.
So, a couple of things there. One is definitely the team, right? So everybody from top to down believes it's their own company. So everybody is invested into that, right? And that is just comes naturally to a lot of people, right? You can't really buy that or do anything about it. So from top to down, every person is invested into the idea of insuring India substantially. So that is one objective which is there. The other is perseverance. So we are at it. We are at it, irrespective of what happens. See, we have to convince a consumer to buy an insurance product which does not come naturally to his thought process, and we have to ensure he pays for it, right? So that perseverance is very important. Third and very important aspect that what I saw in Policy Bazaar when we started was, so every consumer complaint is looked at very seriously. See, insurance as a business category is a very complaints oriented category. And we were cognizant of the fact that we have to do world-class services on customer level, on customer service front. So earlier times, what used to happen if there was a customer complaint, it used to go to everybody. So if a consumer would send in an email that I have an issue or something, you will get a human response within an hour or within 30 minutes, irrespective of the time and day. So at times, our group CEO would be responding, the business head would be responding to the consumer to just tell him that we are here, don't worry, we'll sort it out, right? And the distribution list, just to let you know, the email would go to everybody who was a business head, to the complaints manager, to the team, right? About 30, 40 people would have the access to the same email. irrespective of what business they were managing. So that was our focus on consumer side, which really helped us.
That's fantastic. Now let's talk about Policy Bazaar both in India and in UAE, where
Yeah.
you are right now. Uh, just like India, Middle East is also such a multicultural society, right? You have a
Yeah.
rich mix of locals and expats from around the world. There's a certain business cultural aspect to it. Can you tell us what are the critical challenges that you face with regards to Policy Bazaar in India and UAE as well?
So, okay, so a couple of aspects there. So, India, from a digital perspective, at least from a financial and insurance perspective, is far ahead of the Middle East as of now, right? In terms of the way insurers are on the technology side, in terms of what we've been able to do. So, a couple of challenges that what we faced initially in insurance in India were like convincing insurance company to go on the digital side, right? So, build consumer journeys or consumer experience which was curated specifically for digital, right? What used to happen earlier is, okay, we speak to an insurance company and tell them, okay, we want to go digital. What would they typically do is whatever offline process was there and where an agent was selling, they would typically make that as a digital form. Now what happens is that doesn't work. Digital, the expectations are different, right? Well, not only from a buying perspective but also from a customer service perspective, right? The other aspect was, how do you ensure your consumer gets an instant policy if everything is clear? Because consumer here was saying, if I'm buying an air ticket or I'm shopping on a Flipkart or Amazon, my product is delivered in 24 hours. And whereas now here it's a paper, it's a soft copy, you are delivering me after 48 hours, 72 hours, that doesn't work because his expectations was very different, right? So to meet those expectations, there was a lot of work which we had to do with the insurers in terms of changing the processes. See, every insurer was at a different understanding of the digital process and a digital preparedness perspective, right? So that is the journey we had to go through with the insurance company. And a lot of insurance company, when they started moving on that front, they moved at a very fast pace. And right now we can give a consumer a digital experience. So moving back to or moving to UAE from there, it's the same challenges. Here we are now again convincing the insurance company to create digital processes where customer service is oriented to digital. You don't respond to a consumer in few days, but in few minutes or few hours. And making sure the insurance company's products are available digital. I can buy a policy digitally. So those are the most important challenges or the biggest challenges we face is convincing the industry to move to digital. But pandemic has obviously accelerated those discussions. So we see in next 12 to 18 months in UAE also a lot of digitization on insurance processes will happen. See, a lot of people miss the aspect of digital as only being a sales channel, but it is a lot more than sales only. It is also about customer service. So, and in an insurance product, the moment of truth is when you need to utilize that product. And if you're not able to utilize the product what it is intended to for, then there's a huge disconnect. So that is where I believe digital has to come about, and the thought processes are changing. And hopefully, in 12 to 18 months, we should see a significant leap on digitization in insurance.
And now that you told us about the, different challenges you face, tell us what's the most positive differentiator between these two markets?
Okay, the positive differentiator. Okay, so from an Indian perspective, insurance is not a natural concept which comes to you, right? Whereas in UAE, at least insurance is a product which is thought about by consumers, right? So that is one thing is easier for us. At least consumer understand what insurance is. In India, it is more about educating the consumers why you need insurance, what are the benefits. So here the audience is more educated from that perspective. It's more of a white collar audience. They have certain salary levels which are, I would say, on a middle or a higher middle income group. So they're more aware of the insurance as a
India's
category.
insurance market has this massive potential, right? As a country of 1.3 billion, which is mostly uninsured or underinsured. Can you tell us what is lacking in this mindset of insurance not being top of the mind?
Fair enough. I believe what we need to address is two why does a consumer start looking at insurance, at least as of now? One is we saw in the pandemic, when certain external event was happening, people thought, okay, let me buy insurance so that it covers me, right?
Right.
The second is when something happens in your family, your dear ones, or in your friends, and that is the point you realize, okay, there's a huge outgo on medical costs. I probably should buy insurance, right? These are the two trigger points typically for a consumer. A
Correct.
lot of consumers have although started talking about, okay, now I'm starting a family, I need to secure them, or I as an individual should buy an insurance. Now, nobody, when they start straight out of college, start working, they don't think about insurance, right? They think about, okay, this is the car I want to buy, this is the mobile phone I want to buy. Because those have been always the aspirations for a consumer. Insurance has never been talked about, right? Medical, how to secure your family has never been talked about. It's not talked either in a education system or at your home or in your family circle, right? So the discussion on insurance has to begin in all places. And fortunately, what the pandemic has done is started that conversation at least, right? And what we are also seeing is the industry in general should start those conversations, educate a lot more about consumers on why what insurance does. See, our objective is very clear: the middle income group. The only way they can have a safe future is through insurance. There is no way a middle income class person can afford 20, 30, 40 lakhs straight up on a hospital expenses, right? You either have to break your savings or you have to borrow through your family, friends, or whatever, right? So the only way is to educate the consumers on that. And that is what we've been trying to do since start. So if you see, we run a lot of educative programs for consumers to understand what insurance is. The other aspect what needs to be worked about is a lot of negativity has been associated with insurance industry due to multiple reasons, be due to mis-selling or claims not being paid or XYZ reasons, right? So consumer feel here, okay, if I take an insurance, what will I get out of it? The company might not give me claims. But that is not the reality, right? We've seen with our experience, if the consumers are declaring everything in a correct and right fashion, insurance companies do not decline claims. It is only when you try to play with the system, the other party will take corrective measures, right? So I believe in entirety, what we need to do is start educating the consumers and also work on the negative aspects of customer claims, service levels, and talk about insurance in every aspect. How does it help? How does it save? I believe there are a lot more discussion about where the insurance company faulted, but there are no more discussions about how did the insurance company help. I believe everybody also needs to highlight those aspects. This is the way insurance company helped the consumer, or this is how a family was held through insurance product. I believe once those things start happening, a lot more awareness will come about.
Yeah, I think you just gave a very brilliant insight on how just changing a conversation around insurance will, start to change the way we think about it and the way we understand it. Neeraj, my next question is specifically for our audiences.
Yes.
I think all of us would really like to know what kind of insurance is most important to safeguard businesses. So can you shed some light on that?
So I believe you're referring to a business house rather than an individual, right?
Yes,
Fair enough. So from a
absolutely.
business perspective, I believe a lot of people read about Wimbledon where they got a pandemic insurance done, and they've been paying premiums for years, but this time they got a huge amount of money through that insurance, right? Unfortunately, what we've seen in India, pandemic is still not covered in insurance. I believe the authorities and all the insurance bodies are working towards it. But having said that, for a business right now, two important insurances which they should have is one for the employees. Now employees should be covered for health insurance as well as a group life, right? Because what this pandemic has taught is if your business requires meeting consumers and going out, there is a chance you might get infected or might have other aspects, right? So health insurance and a life insurance is very important so that it gives a sense of security to your employees. You can take care of them. The other aspect of insurance should be a liability insurance for your company in which you are secured to any third party. So, for example, you're dealing with your vendors, consumers, you're selling products, services. If there are gaps, deficiency, in those services, products, somebody's missold those products, you take an insurance to protect yourself from that. The other is if you are a business house which has a lot of physical assets or material or a plant, then you need to insure that. A common term is NatCat, which is natural catastrophe, right? You protect
Right.
your equipment, your material, your assets through that, so that if there's an earthquake, fire, or whatever happens, you are secure. In this pandemic, if you've also seen a lot of earthquake incidents, right? Which got
Yes.
reported. So it's very important to have these sort of basic insurances for your business.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. That was great insight, I think, for everyone who's logged in and watching us right now. Now, Policy Bazaar is set to become first Indian digital startup to go public. And there are many startups who are currently heading the fintech way. Neeraj, tell us one advice to them, and tell us one thing that they must absolutely not do.
Okay. One is be grounded and listen to your consumers. That is the most important aspect. A lot of time what happens is we start to build on a product and believe that that is the right product for the consumer, right? Because we've built it, we've invested our time and energy. It's like our own baby, right? And we get so involved in that that we know it should work. But please do listen to the consumer. Consumer might approve that or reject that, and it is very important to be grounded and listen to that. The other important aspect that you should stay away, build a core business. You should be solving some core problem. You should address that. You should not be building this just to for a valuation or making a business, just selling it off or whatever, right? It should not be the objective. Your objective should be to solve a problem, solve a need. That should be your objective.
That's fantastic. And I'm really amazed at the very, subtle insights that we've brought through this conversation, Neeraj. And I think one thing has become very clear to me that even though COVID-19 will have a deep impact on this industry, it will have a deeper impact on how brands such as yours and brands, that brands will really communicate clearly with their consumers, will in fact outlive even a crisis like that.
Yes.
Be it an existing one or the ones to come.
Yes.
One of my key takeaways from this conversation is that honest and transparent communication, even right now, remains the key for any brand to ride through this wave. So, Neeraj, thank you so much. Thank you for, so openly sharing with us and all of my audiences what we can do better. Thank you for this conversation.
Thank you, Zina. My pleasure. My pleasure.
Pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.